welcome back to another edition of the Change My Mind podcast.
I won't change my mind, because I don't have to, because I'm an American.
Yes, you are, and I'm Wesley Sykes. Through the other side of the ether is the Wolverine to my Deadpool. It's Mr. Nicholas J. Esquire, Jackman for hire.
I appreciate the compliment, but I do think actually in our relationship, Wolverine and Deadpool, I think that actually makes a lot of sense.
I think so too. You're the hero, and I'm the guy who's just trying to have some fun.
Yeah.
Maybe screw things up along the way.
Yeah, and you definitely
chaos.
And you definitely make a lot of one-liners, and some that I'm so like, huh? What the fuck?
Yeah.
But it was I had a great time with this. I'm very excited to talk about this.
Well, and of course, quite notably, you have a serious drinking problem.
Yes, of course, we all know this. Very, very well documented.
Yes, of course. And if you haven't already guessed from our intro this week, we have a jam-packed episode. But later on, we'll be reviewing the 47th entry into the MCU. The aforementioned Deadpool and Wolverine, directed by Sean Levy and starring Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman and so much more. But we mentioned the jam-packed show, Nick. So right off the top, intro question: San Diego Comic-Con also was this past week, this weekend.
Yep.
A lot of news to come out of Marvel, notably some beats about the Thunderbolts, some beats about Captain America: Brave New World. However, the big news is that we have a new director for the fifth, formerly Avengers Kang Dynasty movie, right? I believe that's number 5, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, I think so. So we got new directors, which are same as the old directors, Joe and Anthony Russo. They're coming back, but they also unveiled who will be playing Doctor Doom to replace Kang, essentially, as the big bad for the fifth Avengers movie. It's Robert Downey Jr.
I don't think anybody could have seen this coming. There's absolutely no way. I'm still like baffled by this. I see ways in which it can be done, but it also just there's still so much that I'm not sure how they're going to do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm very much on the fence of this, just like you. However, you have the comic book lore and backstory there that maybe can make a little bit of sense of this. I think it's a bit of a nostalgia bait, which might be a reoccurring phrase that I use throughout this podcast here.
Mm-hmm.
But it's weird because it's like, I saw, maybe this was on The Ringer, but I think the headline was Marvel does Days of Future Past with its own MCU lineup. And it's like, they're going into the future, but bringing back the heroes from the past to give you that like nostalgia love for it. I don't know. Maybe it can work. Is this a Tony Stark variant who turns into Doctor Doom, or like almost like a superior Iron Man blend of Doctor Doom? Like I don't know. Where do you see this kind of playing out?
So I don't think you're too far off. Another phrase that you've used in the past for different stories is doing a Freaky Friday kind of thing.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And and we also know that Kevin Feige has, or some people over at Marvel Studios have an affinity for the What If comics.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a what if issue where Iron Man and Doctor Doom do a Freaky Friday situation.
A switcheroo.
But it's Doom who actually initiates that. They are in college together, and then they have and then Doom like employs Stark in the course of it all. They were like roommates, they weren't getting along, and then Doom realized how smart Stark is, gets him to work with him, and Doom wants Stark's like advantages that he has in life, being wealthy and all these different things, again in college, so he's not like full-on playboy philanthropist and all that kind of shit yet.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to have that at his disposal to then go and have this massive impact and have life be a lot easier for him in the process. So that is like, that's where like it is Tony Stark still, but it's Doom, like who's inhabited the body. So with what we're going to be talking about today with Deadpool and Wolverine and still dealing with the multiverse and in varying capacities, I can't help but wonder if like this is Doom, but this is Doom from another reality where it's Doom's conscious that's in Tony's body. So they'd be taking like the inspiration from this what if story, but then really running with it and making it their own thing.
I feel like as convoluted as that sounds, like that makes sense. But I'm thinking in a world like, okay, so what if Robert Downey Jr. is just playing Doctor Doom?
Mhm.
The characters within the MCU don't recognize the same
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
whole time because like that would be kind of frustrating.
Yes, that would be so weird if it's just like, you seem familiar, but I just can't fucking place you. Like, or they just completely ignore it.
Yeah. It's like they do with Rhodey with the switch there, right? It's like it's me, I'm here, let's get over it,
But
or like shave the mustache off in Brave New World,
but like times a million
right.
if you go and do it with like, I mean, God, it's just so what I said, like, it's in the comics, it's a one shot, it's very easy to access if you have like the Marvel app and everything, but I it's a bizarre move nonetheless. Like I does it, like, could they go and do it? Yeah, but they could do something else. It just, what I'm saying to me is what makes the most sense right now. Like, we have seen Doom like go and be Iron Man, and I will
Mhm.
say actually, where another thing that adds to like the theory that I have, and like other people have too. I'm not the only one that's saying this about the What If
Sure.
title. In that What If title, when Doom as Tony Stark, like over time, he builds the Iron Man suit, and then you have Tony Stark as Doom, he builds out the Doom suit. So when Robert Downey Jr. said it's still the same mask,
Mhm.
like that Doom did, like Doom as Tony Stark still made the same mask. It was just the same suit. It was just in Doom colors. That was the switcheroo. So,
Gotcha. Okay. So again, that could all be interesting. It feels like they were just kind of going for an attention grab, like kind of like what they do at all of these San Diego Comic Cons or like Disney Con or whatever it is. They make all of these announcements, and it's like, all right, well, 4 years later, we're still waiting for Blade.
yeah,
And it's like, all right,
yeah.
3 years ago they announced Secret Wars or whatever it was, and then it's still 3 years out.
Yeah, and we still, and like there's it's such a the other thing too with all of it is, as like I was sitting here waiting to like for us to get going, I was also thinking like this is so weird that it's like they have to like feel super confident about what they're doing because it's such a bizarre aggressive
I
swing
hope
that just
so.
on the surface, I'm breaking down a single what if issue talking about all this. Like
Hmm.
that's what your major step, your major like pivot from the Kang dynasty is going to be, is this one little thing.
And everyone loved What If.
Of course, of course. So it's like that, like but that's where again, like that, at least that thread makes sense where they
Right.
seem to
Yeah,
love
yeah,
it.
yeah.
But it's just, yeah, I don't know. It's wild. I'm excited to see it in the sense of like this is such a crazy swing. How are you going to make this work? It's wild.
I agree, and I wonder if he gets held off until Avengers, whatever it's called, Doom Dynasty or whatever,
Doomsday, I think.
Doomsday,
Yeah,
or does he get introduced in the Fantastic Four in some way?
I
Well,
think
that's
Actually, that's a good point. I don't know, but see, this is where I think we're still dealing with some. Despite some of the remarks made in Deadpool and Wolverine, I still think we're going to be dealing with some level of multiversal stuff because I don't remember what's going on with Fantastic Four set in the '60s, but
right. No, that's right. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So that would be kind of tough to introduce,
Yeah,
assuming that everything else is in like
yeah.
2030 or 2025 or whatever it is.
Again, like with Fantastic Four, they gave us like a series of comics that they told people like these are things you should look at for like inspiration for the Fantastic Four movie. One of them is like a specific, like there's like, they have like Fantastic Four 1, but then there's another one that came out a few years ago, and I can't remember the name of it, but Joe talked about it on TLDR, and it
It's like
was,
Lost in Time or something like that.
I don't think it was a lot,
Nah,
that
I'm
might
just
have been one,
pulling shit out of my ass here.
but it was the one where it's set in the 60s, and it's part, and like that first issue, the first issue was set in the 60s, then the second issue was like, it's like a decades like long thing, but it
Mm.
only talked about that specific issue from that run. So it was like I can't remember, it's bugging the shit out of me, but a life story, that's what it is, Fantastic Four life
Yes.
story,
Okay. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's only the first issue where it's set in that era. So like if you're going to extrapolate from that one thing, I don't know how much you're going to extrapolate from it. Going, the transitive property with the Doom stuff, again, it makes it seem a lot like less, like it makes more sense that they're going to do a lot of stuff from that What If story.
All right. Last thing before we move on to the comic book minute. If not RDJ, who would you have liked to seen in Doctor Doom?
You know, I hadn't really. I don't think I thought about it a whole heck of a lot, but I did see somebody tweet about Cillian Murphy
Oh,
as Robert
sure.
Downey Jr. I mean, I just think the man can do anything.
Yeah.
But it would be like kind of cool to see them on screen again.
I would like a little beefier
That's
Doctor
fair.
Doom. But I think he
That's true.
has like the facial intensity to convey everything that Doctor Doom is.
Yeah, and the air about him too, like his
Yeah, yeah,
presence.
yeah.
But you're right in the sense of like he's not a big dude. And I'd like we've seen plenty of actors over the years transform their bodies, but
Sure.
I don't know if Cillian Murphy's like if that's his speed.
Yeah, let's stick with Oppenheimer for a moment because two names came to mind. One, I'm not sure would be great, but I think it could be interesting. Josh Hartnett.
Oh,
Maybe he maybe doesn't have the facial intensity that Cillian Murphy has, but he's certainly big and brooding. I loved him in Oppenheimer. I thought that was a nice little comeback for him. Of course, he has was it Trapped, the M. Night Shyamalan movie that's coming out in a couple weeks.
that looks interesting.
So this could be we could be in the middle of a Josh Hartnett-assance there. But the other one, again, similar build, similar brood, Ben Affleck.
Oh, that would be Ben Affleck. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. It's not, and that's not going to be the last Ben Affleck comment that we have. I think in this.
No, yeah. So he could finally get the one up over Jennifer Garner there. Of course, he's already played Batman, but
Yeah, that's
yeah,
interesting.
I don't know, just a couple names. I'm not sure if those would be perfect fits, but maybe from like a purely physical stature, if they were going to be the man behind the mask, I think that would work.
That from a physical stature standpoint, it absolutely makes sense. From an acting standpoint, Murphy obviously is a lot better of an actor.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's it. That's San Diego Comic-Con. Pretty in-depth breakdown of it. You know, you come here for all the news. That's where we're here to give you. But now we're gonna go to a page turner in the comic book minute here.
Ah, a superb choice.
Look at you with your fancy wordplay. From Marvel this week, we got Blood Hunt issue 5, X-Force issue 1. This is the new, again, start of the new X-Men era from the ashes. Wolverine issue 3. From Image, we got Grommets issue 3. Saga is starting back up with issue 67. They're doing pretty much one arc a year, but this one was a little more delayed than the last couple. I think it was last couple years that we've had Saga. As for TLDR this week, our Christmas in July event ends with a fireside chat with the creators of Feral. They're also the creators of Stray Dogs. The first arc of that just ended before our recording this, so we got a chance to talk some spoilers with them. There is a spoiler warning in there, but this is like a like Stray Dogs, except we're doing it with cats, and then instead of it being like a serial killer story, that is it's more zombie 28 days later. So I believe I may have mentioned this previously, but
we talked about that last week. It was the whole thing. It's like, is it the aristocrats?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's just call it the Aristocats. Like, but I don't think that's the right compo. Like Aristocats, it got that similar kind of animation style, and then meets 28 days later.
Okay. Now, no, my ears perked up when you said Wolverine. So is that the Hellboy Wolverine crossover that we've been waiting for, or is that Wolverine in Hell?
No, it's Wolverine Ghost Rider, but it's a different.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
but we had the Ghost Rider Wolverine crossover previously. This is another spirit that has possessed Wolverine previously, but is now this comes out in the first issue, so a little spoiler for people who want to read this at some point. But Wolverine is now Dakin, which is Wolverine's son. So but yeah, it's some pretty cool action, and it's Benjamin Percy writing, who did the recent Wolverine run and killed it.
So when you say another spirit, like not the spirit of vengeance, but another spirit, like say like a spirit of lust, like maybe if they were making like a romance novel or something, and Wolverine just gets possessed by the spirit of lust, and suddenly he takes off the cap, the cowl that he's got there, and turns into like Fabio or something.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All of that is absolutely correct. But it's actually the spirit Bagra Ghul, but I forget what he's the spirit of. Either way, but yeah, we'll call it lust for now.
Okay, nice. I like that. That could be interesting. And if it's not, then maybe I'm going to slap a copyright on that idea and get to work.
There you go. Look at that.
All right, let's get over to our main topic here. Without further ado, Deadpool, and Wolverine. Nick, hit me with a synopsis real quick.
Wolverine is recovering from his injuries when he crosses paths with the loudmouth Deadpool. They team up to defeat a common enemy.
Pretty boilerplate.
Yeah,
But you know, with all the hype that this movie already has, I'm not sure if you really need like a written synopsis. I think just the title alone is enough to kind of get you in the seat.
Yep.
So I'm not too mad with that synopsis.
Nope, totally works. I mean, we always talk about how like you're giving too much away and whatnot. I mean, it basically sums it up, but at the same time, I don't need, we don't want too much.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, okay. Cast and crew directed by Sean Levy. This was written by Ryan Reynolds, Rhett Reese. That's a lot of R's there, and Paul Wernick. Jesus,
One of these.
this is starring Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool or Wade Wilson, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine or Logan, Emma Corrin, who comes on as Cassandra Nova, Matthew McFadden as Mr. Paradox, Daphne Keene as X-23 or Laura, Jon Favreau comes back with Happy Hogan. Nice to see him. Morena Baccarin is back from the dead as Vanessa. Rob Delaney. Yeah.
You absolutely called that, how they were having issues and everything like that.
I think that might have been Goo. I think Goo had that first.
I specifically remember you saying that on here. So maybe.
Okay. We'll have to check the timestamps of all that there. Rob Delaney, who I thought was a delight, is back as Peter. Leslie Uggams as Blind Al. Jennifer. This is the part I was telling Nick this before we started recording, but I had done a pretty good job of staying away from spoilers. Especially in the few weeks leading up to this movie. I didn't watch any of the extra teaser trailers aside from the first one that was released. So I was like, all right, I kind of, I usually spoil myself before these movies. I was like, no, I want a little fresh change here. So I go to see the movie on Sunday, but on Saturday, I'm putting together all the show notes, just some of the nuts and bolts, like this stuff here. And I'm going through IMDb, and I'm right at this point, I see all these names listed. And I'm like, holy shit, I just got ruined for it, like unbeknownst. Like, they're trying to get ahead, try to do a little bit of work like in advance. And I get spoiled that it's Jennifer Garner appears as Elektra, Wesley Snipes as Blade, which was a missed opportunity for me. My name should have been Wesley Snipes, aka Blade, on the lower third here week. But nevertheless, Channing Tatum, surprisingly, as Gambit, Chris Evans, not as Captain America, but as Johnny Storm.
Amazing.
Henry Cavill makes an appearance as the Cavalrine. That's his name on IMDb, actually, the Cavalrine. That wasn't a turn of phrase by me or anything. Wunmi Masaku as B-15, Aaron Stanford as Pyro, Tyler Main as Sabretooth, and Karan Soni as Dopinder, and a few more.
Yeah, and also I do want to note how, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it the very first episode of our show where you talked about like the whole thing about spoilers versus non-spoilers?
Yeah.
And look at you.
We're growth. We're growing here. We're if for nothing else, we're growers and not showers.
Exactly. And there are other cameos that we had in all this too, but those were definitely the bigger ones. Like we saw Lady Deathstrike was in this. Azazel was in this, but I don't think it was the same Azazel actor. Toad was in it, but it was the same Toad actor. And then Juggernaut, but not played by Vinnie Jones, but he had his outfit on. So
it was a different actor from that.
That didn't look like Vinnie Jones to me. I mean, he seemed familiar, but I couldn't place the guy. Anyways,
okay.
As for the critics' reception and box office, it says hauled in $438.3 million worldwide. 205 million of that is domestic from the opening weekend. Received an 8.3 out of 10 on IMDb in an 80-97 split on Rotten Tomatoes, which honestly makes perfect sense to me. And then a 4.6 out of 5 on Google reviews, with 96% of Google users liking this movie. This doesn't happen often, Wes, but like when I look at all of that breakdown there, it all pretty much like makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, it all kind of falls in line there. I got no problems with it. And I think also that 438 million is the biggest opening weekend for an R-rated movie in history. So yeah, a little bit of a record setter here. We'll take a look to see what the drop off is week 2. I have a feeling this is going to have some staying power, but we'll see how that all plays out here.
Yeah.
But yeah, what did you think of the movie? And give us your tweet length review.
So I definitely had to think a little bit about this grading, especially because we haven't technically graded a Deadpool movie previously.
Yeah.
The only episode we've done on Deadpool Wolverine is our most viewed one on YouTube, but or on Deadpool specifically is was it the original versus sequel?
Yes. Mhm.
So I didn't have a grading to go based off of, but I knew where this ranked within those. We'll get to that later. I had to give it a 92 out of 100 because I was like 93. I have Civil War at 93 and I was like, this from a plotting standpoint isn't nearly as strong as much as I had a really fun time with it. But this came in with the highest of expectations
Mhm.
and delivered on the most important fronts for a Deadpool movie. This was hilarious. It was violent and the cameos were great, although they did not outweigh Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman's entry into the MCU.
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of what you said. Just their differences in the score here, right? So I give it an 85 out of 100. Very fun theater experience. Deadpool and Wolverine lives up to the hype with all the fan servicey, bloody fun between Reynolds and Jackman, while also honoring the past Fox movies. But I think all of that kind of comes at the expense of telling an interesting or even coherent story. And I don't think that really matters so much. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in depth. But you know, as much as it doesn't matter, it does kind of matter, right?
Well, we're giving it a grade. Like we have to look at it's a movie. Like we have to
Yeah.
look at everything when it comes to it. And while like I don't, I obviously we're not in our normal gap of grading of 5 points. Like I agree with most of your points.
Yeah, it's just the grading scale is a little bit different there. Yeah.
Always.
But yeah, okay. So as for the rankings here, the CMMCU rankings, that is the 47th entry
Crazy.
into the MCU. Yeah, which is nuts. And this comes in at number 17 with that 92-85 split, good for 85 and a half. Just behind Spider-Man Far From Home and just ahead of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So pretty close there. And also, I don't think we noted this during the X-Men series, but that is number one on our list.
Yes. Yeah.
98 and a half over Avengers Endgame and Avengers Infinity War, which have 98 and 97.5 respectively.
Yeah, I don't think we have mentioned that. I feel good about that being like it should at least be in the top 5. I feel like I love seeing it at 1, but I'm also like Endgame and Infinity War, man. It's just like, you know,
it's tough to top that, and especially like considering the mediums, right? The movie to TV show mediums and the difference in there. You know, it's like maybe you're considering college football and NFL there. So it's like X-Men 97 is like the Nick Saban Alabama Crimson Tide, right? And like the Avenger Endgames are like, I don't know, currently the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's like, do we think the Alabama Crimson Tide is better than the Endgame there? But I don't know. Maybe it's almost separate.
But the other thing is too, and I think that's actually a pretty good comparison. But I think the other thing too, and it's something for me with this movie as well, is the expectations. Like X-Men 97, it's like that was like you better not fuck this up. Like you're gonna bring this back. You got to get it right. And Deadpool and Wolverine, again, while I'm somebody who's not like Marvel is in so much trouble, like a lot of people felt that way. A lot of people had criticisms of it, and then it's like you're gonna go and bring back Hugh Jackman. You're integrating Deadpool into the mix. The expectations are extremely high, and as much as we talked about from a plotting standpoint, like didn't bring a whole lot to the table. It's also expected to be fucking hilarious and have awesome action, and it brought all that. I actually feel like Deadpool and Wolverine, like I don't say this often, but the grading, like where it lands in our rankings, I don't love its positioning. I feel like it should be a little higher.
Yeah, I think it should be higher. You know, I say this while bringing down the score with my lower grade, but I think in theory, it's better than Ant-Man. It's better than Far From Home. It's better than Wakanda Forever. You know, Guardians 3, maybe. You know, it's probably closer to like No Way Home, and that's probably a better comparison to the movie just because of the crossover cameos that appear there.
Yeah, but this is how we graded. Like we had this, these numbers at our disposal. Like I saw Wakanda Forever, like in my looking at my rankings and Civil War. Like I have those at 93 and Guardians Volume 3. Like I have those at 93, and I was like, because of the plot, I couldn't put it on that same level as much as I had a fucking fun time.
Yeah, for sure there. Okay, so let's dive into it.
Yeah.
Again, we kind of tease this a little bit, but how does this stack up to the previous two Deadpool movies?
I think I'd be. That's not fair. So I put it at one. The original is the best one.
Mhm.
Then Deadpool and Wolverine is the second best one, and then the second Deadpool is number three. I
Yes.
feel like sorry. I know it's a little complicated there, but for me, obviously there are plenty of people who feel differently about two and one, and I think that's totally fair. I absolutely love number one. It's for me one of the most rewatchable superhero movies or
Mhm.
movies for me.
Agreed.
Period.
Yep.
But yeah, this was a blast. Like I just I had more fun with this than I did the second one.
Yeah, and I think the second one probably has a little more coherent or a better story
Definitely has the
than
best.
this
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yes.
But again, that doesn't really matter because all of the spectacle that surrounds Deadpool and Wolverine cashed in on it. So I'm with you. I think Deadpool 1 is 1, Deadpool Wolverine is number 2, and then Deadpool 2 is number 3. I think that's where it falls, and maybe even a delineation. Tier 1 would be the first two, Deadpool and Deadpool and Wolverine, and then in tier 2 would be Deadpool 2.
I don't know if I'd go that far personally. I feel because I can also see anybody having a different order. Like I think that
Sure.
there's no real wrong answer to this one because they're
Mhm.
all fucking awesome. Like it's like that drop off from like for me from three to from technically Deadpool 3 to from the second movie is I don't know. It doesn't feel like that significant. Like I know it's there, but it's not like whoa, like this is such a bounce back from the second one or whatever.
A good through line, and this wasn't a question, but maybe we'll throw it to you on the spot. Which one has the best villain?
Ooh, which one
Because
has
they're all kind of lacking.
Okay, so you were talking about it kind of before, like from a substance or like a plotting standpoint. Number two has the best plot. Like
Hmm.
number one is like it's Francis and it's like a love story and Wade kind of. It's more about that's the thing about a lot of the like most of these is like it's more about Deadpool and I love that. Like it's more about the character and the shit that he's going through. That's what it should be. It doesn't. He's not as reliant on the big bad. That said, I think that like like the plot of number two is probably the best, but I do think Cassandra Nova is the coolest big bad of the bunch.
She's the coolest, and she's the biggest of the bad, right? Because
Yeah.
maybe I'm like, do you consider Cable to be the villain of Deadpool 2, or is it Fire Fist?
No, it's Fire Fist.
Yeah, Fire
Yeah.
Fist sucks.
Yeah.
He might be worse than Francis.
Yeah, I mean, I don't particularly love Fire Fist, but like his story is the best, and even then, he's like not a true villain either. It's
Right.
really the fucking creeps at the children's home or whatever, the foster home,
Mhm.
whatever the fuck that is. So, yeah,
Yeah, I would agree with you. Probably 3, 1, 2 in that order.
yeah, from a villain standpoint, yeah. Which I mean, Francis is fucking like he's very much whatever too.
Yeah. But he does a good job, though. You hate
Yeah,
him. I
yeah,
definitely hate him. He's
yeah.
definitely like an unlikable guy. Um, okay, so what is your Mount Rushmore of Wolverine related movies?
Okay, so Wolverine related, obviously Logan. That is all time comic book.
Hmm.
It's an all time
Hmm.
movie in general. X2 is number two on that list because obviously it's just one of the most important X-Men movies we've had. And then this is like those three, like the one Deadpool Wolverine is third on that list. All very comfortable on there. Then for me, it's tough between Days of Future Past in the original X-Men movie.
Really interesting.
Yeah, and this and like it's like for the original X-Men movie, obviously from a like plotting and everything, like from a visual effects and in so many different ways, like it's very dated, of course, like that's undeniable. But it's the original, and when we talk about like everything that got it started, Iron Man gets all the glory, but Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man, Blade, and then the
Hmm.
original X-Men movie were all massive for the genre that we've done. At minimum 47 fucking episodes on all of this shit.
Right. Yeah. Okay. We're just about the same with the exception of the original X-Men. I go Logan and then Days of Future Past. That's the big stray there. That's number 2 for me. I love that movie. Excuse me. X2 and then Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, I mean I can't argue with that. Like it's definitely a superior movie.
But I was going to say, I know you're kind of have a soft spot for some of the Wolverine origins and Wolverine movies that have come out. It's the solo project. So maybe just from like a not the surrounding story and everything around it, but just Hugh Jackman Wolverine.
The so I we never did an episode on like Wolverine origins, like defending that, but because I went back and rewatched it, and I was like, oh no, like no, like it's like I was a kid, like, I was young when it came out, and it's
That's
like,
the one where he goes to Asia.
No, that's the Wolverine, which isn't
Gotcha.
like is fine, like that one's okay, like but the Wolverine origins, which is where you have him and Sabretooth, and
Right.
yeah, there's just a lot wrong. Like it's not just like fucking around so much with Wolverine's history. It's like there's just a lot wrong with that movie.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So okay. Definitive Mount Rushmore. I like that. Okay. One more question here before we get into some of the staples of the exit survey here. Is this the funniest comic book movie to date? And as a follow-up for the MCU.
Ooh, okay. Well, you answer this one first because you jotted down a few.
So yeah, there's 3 that come to mind. Deadpool 1, obviously, Guardians Volume 1, and Thor Ragnarok. Those were the big 3 that kind of came to mind there. Maybe I'm missing something else, like maybe some more fringe graphic novel. Like I don't know if people were a fan of Hellboy. I haven't seen that, so maybe that's like a blind spot for me. But I don't know. For me, I love the first Deadpool one because of the newness to it and the introduction to it and the absurdity of it all, not really knowing what to expect. You know, you get more of the same in Deadpool 2 and then this movie here, which is great. But I understand, like, you know, your mileage may vary with what you think about Ryan Reynolds. And I understand that. I happen to like him, but I can understand why people don't like him. So maybe it's just like too much in one role, where you get that drop off of Deadpool 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine. But for me, like he was at like the height of his powers in Deadpool 1.
So those 3 movies that you listed off are obviously, like, from an MCU standpoint, the funniest ones we get. And I mean, from a DC perspective, right? We pretty much, it's always been, I feel like I'm missing something, but it's all like you have Peacemaker, which obviously is funny.
Sure. Yeah.
By and large, otherwise we're just dealing with like movies. It's all been largely darker. I mean, we have Suicide Squad, which is obviously the better of the two and has more humor, but from a comedic standpoint, it's definitely those 3 movies that I know of. Ant-Man, that's a good point.
To a lesser degree, like I wouldn't say it's above any of the 3 movies that I mentioned.
No, but I think so Deadpool, the original, obviously came in with like expectations of being funny because like it's the Merc with the mouth, but at the same time, you don't know exactly what you're going to get. You have Guardians where there's just no expectations. I mean, Marvel wasn't even Marvel like it is now at that
right
point.
Yeah.
And then Thor Ragnarok, it was like, wait, Thor's going to be funny? Like, it was twisting everything on its head from what we gotten from Branagh before. So there were things going in those movies' favors. Now, again, that's not to say that take away from how funny they were. This, though, it's number 3. You're bringing in Wolverine to the mix. Like, this is going to be fucking funny, right? Like, this better be fucking funny. And if it's not, like, then what's going on? Like, how are you missing on? Like, and from a writing standpoint, where we talk about how like the plot's kind of like whatever, the dialogue, the one-liners, the jokes, everything, hits. So, all of it is so damn funny. So maybe maybe in a way, like I laughed. If you like tracked my laughs, I wouldn't be surprised if one of those other movies, maybe I had more laughs than in this one. But this had such high expectations. It's like the amount of laughs that this got for me. Like, it was an uphill battle. So I'm inclined to say yes.
Yeah, and there's a ton of, like, it's kind of Ryan Reynolds' style, like to throw a ton at you. You know, he's not going to have a high batting average, but he might have a high OPS. You know, if that makes sense. You know, it's like not everything's going to hit, but the stuff that does hit is going to be for power.
And there's so much shit too that's like, and this doesn't just apply to the comedy necessarily, but there's so much stuff that's like, they did a really good job of sprinkling in shit for everybody. Like the whole, we'll talk about the montage later, but that montage there was stuff in there for like the layman, and then there's also stuff in there for like me who's read comics, and then there's like jokes about like Blake Lively that's mixed in the conversation that like some of it I caught some of it, but some of it went over my head, but my wife knew it and loved it. So it's like they did a really good job of like spreading all of that kind of shit out too.
Yeah, no, absolutely there. So, okay, so let's get into our like staples here of the exit survey. What was the most rewatchable scene for you?
I think I got to go with Deadpool versus Wolverine in the Wasteland. Like that fight scene was probably the one that I love the most.
I was going to say, is that your favorite action scene, fight scene in that? Yeah,
From this movie, yeah. I mean, there's also the one in the car,
right.
which was great. I mean, that was
Hmm.
vicious. I mean, in the end of that, again, like funny, you have like Deadpool like all like tied up in the seatbelt was great. You have the montage of the Wolverines that we alluded to. I mean, you get Patch in there, you get Wolverine like from the Claremont run where he's like being crucified.
Hmm.
You have
Comic accurate sized Wolverine.
oh my god, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Like amazing. Like you
Yeah.
have all like the Age of Apocalypse, like I just things I never thought I fucking see. And then you get Cavill in the mix of
Hmm.
it too. And it's just like, wait a minute. Like, because when I saw the back of him, like, okay, why aren't you showing him? Like now I'm enjoying all this, but I can't help but fucking think like what's going on
And
with
he
this
looked
Wolverine?
huge.
Huge. And then he didn't just punch him like with this, like he like Superman punched him. It was that was so I loved that sequence. I had a lot of fun with
Let's stay with that on a second because I got a couple questions for you. Our comic book expert. When you said Age of Apocalypse, X-Men, is that the one where he's like in the black leather in the street and he's like got a fake hand or
it.
like?
I think his outfit was blue and red, which is like a
Oh
comic actor,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
it's like navy blue, so it looks black. But
Mhm.
yes, but like he has like one of his hands is cut off. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And the other one, which I'm not sure if you mentioned, but was in his more comic accurate brown and yellow suit when he's
Oh
facing off against
yeah.
the Hulk, and then you see the blades come up and you see the face of the Hulk screaming behind him.
Mm-hmm.
That was really cool. Nice little tease. Obviously, they didn't really show it, but everything's kind of happening, at a quick pace there, so they fly right by it. That's okay.
Amazing. Yeah.
The patch thing was interesting. We heard a lot of rumors about the different Wolverines that were going to appear. There were rumors that it was going to be Taron Egerton, Harry Potter. There, what's his name? I can't I think
Radcliffe.
of the name? What was it?
Daniel Radcliffe.
Yes, thank you. That he might appear into this, and I wonder if that thought. They're like, hey, maybe we're still trying to cast our Wolverine here, so we don't want to blow our load on the fake one. So we'll do like Henry Cavill, much like John Krasinski, sort of thing, and give him a little taste of what the fan casting might have been. But we still have Radcliffe and Edgerton on the table here, or maybe Jeremy Allen White,
Yeah. There's
the Bear, which could be interesting.
That could work. As much as I mean, based on what I've heard about the Bear, I have not watched it, but yeah, like I can't help but wonder too if Rob McElhenney was the other Wolverine because he said like his cameo got cut. I saw him tweet about that.
I think he was supposed to be a TVA member.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
My thought was that he was the guy when he's like the one Deadpool points out, he's like, look me in the eyes, and he's trying to screw me or something like that. And he's like, I can see the passion in his eyes, even if he's got a visor on. I thought that was the McElhenney one, but I that's just me guessing. I had no idea.
I'm not sure, but but going back to where we started here, that montage is like I loved it. Like I cannot wait when I go back to rewatch it. That's something I'm like, I'll be rewatching it with my wife because we walked out of the theater and she was like, "This is when this comes out, like on on demand or whatever it is, or DVD. Like we're doing a marathon of Deadpool movies."
I love it. And when was the last time? I agree. I couldn't wait to rewatch this movie when I got out of here. And like, when was the last time that you could say that about a Marvel movie?
The last one that
No Way Home.
Yeah.
Multiverse of Madness.
Because I really loved Guardians 3, but at the same time that was so heavy, and I was like,
it's not like a enjoyable rewatch like that. Yeah,
you gotta like that's these other ones like
same thing with Wakanda Forever for that matter. That it's like a heavy movie that like I'm not sure how often you returned. I did like seeing Neymar again. I really liked his storyline when I rewatched it. But again, that wasn't something I was like coming out of the theater like, oh, I can't wait for this to come up on Disney Plus or on demand or whatever.
Yeah, it might be No Way Home because I saw No Way Home in theaters again afterwards with my dad.
Okay, so yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but so I absolutely loved that sequence. The final battle at Nova's place because we get Gambit, where I have thoughts on Gambit, but like his action was awesome. It was
Top notch.
It was great. They did a really, really good job with that. You get to see him go off. Obviously, X-23 was not the one who really got a ton of highlights, but she did have the cool moment with Juggernaut that you and I were talking about before the show. Obviously, Blade gets to do some shit, and so does Elektra. So I had fun with that. And then I know when we bring up the post-credit scenes, it's always like, oh, if that's one of the most rewatchable things, it's a bad thing. But this was it was such a perfect callback.
It was a great payoff. Yeah, I agree.
So what happened, like in the earlier part of the movie, it was just like when Johnny Storm, we see him fucking tearing into Cassandra Nova, and it's like, see, I didn't make any of this shit up. Oh my god!
And he's got that little bit of like that FU New York accent of Johnny Storm going there, which maybe it like might slightly be a Boston accent, because we know Chris Evans from like Lincoln Sudbury or something like that. But I thought that was perfect, and so word for word too. Like just to see him kind of tap back into that like douchebag role that he was pre Captain America, like not another team movie type thing. Really cool to see. I agree with everything on here. I think my favorite fight scene, it's a toss up between Deadpool and Wolverine and the Honda Odyssey or the NSYNC opening credit scene, which I thought was which I thought was amazing. That was like maybe my favorite scene. I think that's going to be the one that like I go back and search out on YouTube for a clip, just because I thought it was so enjoyable. I thought it was really cool how they did the opening credits through that on different parts of, Logan's skeleton coming through. Really awesome. And I thought that wasn't overkill. You think like some of the music I thought was kind of an odd choice here. And I don't think that fully aged the best. Felt like it was like too poppy. But with that said, this being like right off the jump was a great tone setter for me. I think
that's exactly what I was about to say. It was a perfect tone setter. So I had so much fun with the insane opening sequence. It was great.
I thought, and it was good dancing. I don't know if that was Ryan Reynolds. I'm assuming not.
No,
that was really good.
If you check Discussing Film, the Twitter account, they tweeted like, or quote tweeted like the video of the guy who like actually performed it. Like they have him. He did it elsewhere, like on TikTok or something like that too. So
okay, all right. So good for that guy. Dancing pool,
Yeah.
Good stuff there. What else did I miss? Deadpool versus Wolverine and the Honda Odyssey. Like you said, the Laura fight scene with the Juggernaut, very cool. But this almost like kind of going back to our boys exit survey from last week, like the things that make you like really like the big like gross out moments. Like that's one of the ones like in The Boys when the fingers get chopped off by the ice skating rink, or Starlight pulling her hands through the cuffs. Like seeing the back of your ankles get cut, like your Achilles tendon and stuff, like it just gives me an uneasy feeling. I hate it.
Oh, interesting. Wow. Yeah. Okay, that did not have that impact on me, but there was so much happening, and honestly, in that sequence, like I had fun with it, but there was a part of me that's like, can X-23 like do something here? Can we like let her show off? So like when it happened, I was like, that's a thing I'm excited to see again. I know it bothered you to an extent, but like I'm excited to take that in again.
Yeah, and we'll see if she comes back. Maybe she's got a role in the Young Avengers, if that's still a thing.
I think I have notes about X-23 for later, for sure.
Okay, this might be kind of stepping on the toes of best performance by a side character, but who is your favorite surprise side character? So I don't want to say cameo because we use the term cameo, but these characters have like a little bit of an expanded role than just like a pop-in cameo.
The cameos were like Sabretooth, Juggernaut,
right,
Toad,
Azazel.
Like Lady Deathstrike, who didn't really get to do a whole heck of a lot. I was hoping she would get her moment too. But I mean, she had more screen time than Sabretooth.
That's true. That's true.
I wasn't ready for that. But yeah, so like but of those characters that you're talking about, like these surprise side characters, for me, it has to be Johnny Storm. Like they go, you hear his voice, they try and make you think it's Cap, and I'm like, it's not Cap. It's like is it like, oh, that's what they did? Okay, like they got me kind of for a second, and then when he stepped down and I saw his suit a little bit, I was like, no, he is fucking Johnny Storm. I cannot believe it. I am so fucking pumped about this, and I couldn't talk about it because like I don't want to ruin the movie. Like Lauren's to my left, and she's like, knows what's going on, but also doesn't know what's going on yet. So I'm
Right.
like,
Yeah.
I gotta shut up. But he was so fucking funny, and the way that like him and Deadpool, like that's just a, we talk about like the loudmouths of the Marvel universe. Like those guys are both obviously up there. So it was great to have them have their moments. And like Johnny Storm, he's just like he has no fucking clue what's going on. Like Chris Evans did it, like in terms of dealing with Deadpool. Chris Evans, top-notch job. To me, it's no question who's number one in this conversation.
See, I find that very surprising. We'll get to that in a second. But Johnny Storm, I loved it, but he should be dead, right? Like he shouldn't have lived after his fire got taken from him by Pyro, and he falls on the billboard, right? And like
that is also true.
Falls right on his neck, falls on his balls. Like he shouldn't be alive, right?
When they did that, I was like, "Oh, you're still alive? Okay, like whatever." I don't make the rules here. Whatever.
Yeah, I was very confused. I don't know about his power set, but I would imagine like any of his super strength kind of goes away with the flame off thing.
I don't remember Johnny Storm having super strength, quite honestly. So
yes, I don't know, but for me, it was Gambit. Just because like we had previously spent time with some of these characters to some level. And to varying success or failure, depending on who you're talking about here. But we never saw any time with Gambit. Our really only time spent, we got a little bit with what's his name from Friday Night Lights,
Taylor Kitsch,
and we got a little bit more resurrection of him in X-Men '97. But Channing Tatum doing Gambit was like almost like he was doing a bit of his role from like 21 Jump Street, Jenko, who was pretending to be Gambit. And if you look at it through that prism, like it's hilarious because just trying to fake the accent. He's like, me llamo Pedro.
I think as his performance went along, I appreciated it more and more. But at first I was like, what the fuck? Like when I saw him on screen, like I'd seen like at San Diego Comic-Con, they just couldn't fucking help themselves. And they put that out there. Like all these people took a stage with or they took a picture with like Wolverine and with Hugh and Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
But I was like, so when I saw him on screen, I was like, what the side, like the his, whatever Gambit's fucking headpiece thing is, let's call it a headpiece. It just looked terrible on Channing Tatum. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, just don't do that. Like Gambit has you can do Gambit without that, and I feel like it would look better if you didn't. But then as it went along, it was very clearly like poking fun at the whole situation. So I think when I rewatch it, I will appreciate it a lot more. I did appreciate it by the end. Gambit is number 2 on my list, but his look just was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that was kind of like, it took me a minute to be like, oh wait, they're like making fun of it. Like he's not really trying to be a Gambit. This is like kind of the spoof on it. Then it became funny because it's like once he opened his mouth, I was like, and before even Deadpool commented on it, I was like, I can't understand a word that he's saying. Like this is why the movie wasn't made. But apparently that was some of the issues that they were having, among many other things, was that we couldn't really get the accent down. And then also apparently the tone, whether they wanted it to be more dark and gritty or something more lighthearted like this movie. And just, again, the lighthearted thing is just seeing Jenko from 21 Jump Street play Gambit was like, that's how I viewed it. And maybe that's how Tatum kind of walked into it as, but I thought that was, it was really well done.
For a spoof on the character, very much well done.
Right.
Absolutely. And I will say too, like that's one of those that's like a deep cut for some people, because like Lauren, who is knows a lot of the stuff, like from just liking it herself, and then also from conversations with me, she was like, am I supposed to have a tough time understanding him right now? And I was like, I forgot like that he had those struggles. So I'm like, I think so, because like his Cajun accent and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know. But then like it was very clear, like it was satire. And then obviously Deadpool calls it out. So it's like, oh, okay. Now everybody's in a joke. That's the thing that's going to age well from a rewatchability standpoint.
I think so as well. So if I went in order, it'd be Gambit, Johnny Storm, and then Blade as my top 3 there from the side characters.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I mean, that's not, and I don't think that's a knock on Garner as Elektra. I just think she was like, yeah, it's fun to see her cool. It's fun to see her play the role again after like how much of a mess it was. Although of all the jokes that we got with those characters, hers, the whole Ben Affleck Daredevil thing, that was that one was really fucking funny. That might be my number one of that bunch.
It was pretty good. And I think it was like you laugh, but you're also like, ooh. And there's another joke that's kind of like that as well.
Yeah, they had some funny shit.
Not with her, but with Blade. With Blade there. Yeah.
Then there would be another Blade.
Yeah.
Was that the one that you were talking about?
No, it was the one. It's him saying, one, acknowledging that they don't like each other. Ryan Reynolds and Blade, because that was apparently a true thing that was on the set of Blade 3.
That's right.
That they didn't get along with each other at all there. So that was a nice olive branch, this movie here. But also him saying, I'm going to be the only Blade on the big screen ever. Yeah.
That was when they did that. I was like, oh wow, all right. I said it was fresh off of them saying there's been like 5 Punishers.
Yeah. But this is my question here, though. So obviously it's the joke, and then you see Deadpool kind of wink or kind of like look, give the Jim Halpert look to the camera there, like, oh, like I don't know if that's true, but so maybe at the expense of this not being funny anymore, explain the joke to me, right? So are they saying that I'm he's the only one, and that look to Deadpool's like, no, we have another Blade movie down the pipeline?
Yeah.
Or is it like, no, you might be the only one, and he's winking at us saying like this new Blade movie isn't working out?
Okay. The way I view it is if it doesn't work out somehow for some reason with Mahershala Ali, like if they have to continue to cancel stuff, eventually they're going to say like, okay, maybe we need to move on from you. Or he'll say, I have to move on. They're not going to not bring Blade into the mix. There's just no way.
Yeah, I wonder like how that joke was to be interpreted, or is it kind of open-ended?
I think that's also part of the brilliance of the joke.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think so. I agree. Like with that team from the laughs, like Gambit might have been number 3 on the last, but again, like it was his whole bit is supposed to be funny. And I'm not counting X-23 in any of this because like we found out beforehand that she was going to be in the mix.
Yes, I think she was in one of the trailers there. Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Okay, what will age the best from this movie?
So what we were just talking about, how they utilize these significant cameos. And again, we're talking about like Blade, Human Torch, not an Azazel or Toad. That said, like they did some cool shit with Azazel, like where he was like doing his Nightcrawler like powers. Toad, they used his tongue. Obviously, they had some fun at the expense of Sabretooth. Like so they messed around with that. Like that was fun, but the significant cameos or side characters, however you want to put it, those were great. The jokes, the action, just all around, loved all of it. Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds chemistry. And then the 2 big ones for me are how they clearly separated Logan from this Wolverine that we have. So I say that, and I don't know how much you've been looking on Twitter, and I'm on there and it's like subconsciously, Wes, and I fucking hate that. But I was looking at it on Twitter and seeing people like tweet about how they just like, they're comparing what happened with Iron Man and how like Robert Downey Jr. is coming back and all this shit. And then what Logan and then like Deadpool and Wolverine, they're like disrespecting these 2 deaths. And then like I see people quote tweeting it and saying like, welcome to comics, like, or tell me you've not read a comic book without reading a comic book before. Okay, you can like the Robert Downey Jr. thing's fucking weird. Period. That's just weird.
Yeah.
I understand this kind of shit happens in comics, but like this is also not the same fucking Wolverine. Like it's very clear they went out of their way to do that.
Yeah, they explain his whole backstory, right? They kind of say how he's the worst Wolverine in the multiverse and all that kind of stuff, right? So I think they do. They spend a lot of time, almost to a fault, explaining things, not just Wolverine's backstory, but explaining things in general. I'll get to that in our next category.
In the beginning of it all, like I mean, Deadpool makes a joke about how like it took 20 minutes to get like Hugh Jackman on the screen, but it's like they tell us like Logan, he died, and that's why all of this shit is happening in the first place. So like I don't understand.
And the TVA loves him. They shed a tear for him, right? They all kind of like have that moment when they're watching him on the screen again.
All of this fucking shit. So it's just like the people tweeting about that, like how like they disrespect it. It's like, are you actively like not listening? Are you trying to ignore it? Or I don't understand the lack of comprehension on that level. Then the other thing was, this is more of a hopeful thing for me, but X-23's role in future Marvel movies, obviously she gets screen time, she has lines, and she's like played like she's a serious character, unlike Johnny Storm or
Right.
Elektra and all that kind of stuff, right? She's like, and then we see her at the end of the movie. I really, really hope that she's going to be staying in the mix going forward. And this is something like I wanted more than anything. Like once we found out she was going to be part of the movie, for me, it was okay. Obviously, we want to see Ryan Reynolds playing Deadpool in the MCU going forward. After that, I want to see Daphne Keane as X-23. She was number 2 on my list over Hugh Jackman, just because Hugh Jackman is old. I know they keep joking that he's going to keep doing this till he's fucking 90, but it's like she's 19. So like, as long as she wants to play the character, she does a really fucking good job of playing the character. So I want to continue to see her playing X-23. So her not getting a lot of like big action moments, like in comparison to the other 3 members of that Resistance, I hope that's like a sign of like we don't need to go nuts with her.
Yeah.
Like give her a little bit, show her heart, but then like we don't need to go over the top with her because she's gonna come back.
I agree. I think that's a good summation here. Also, I just want to go back to favorite surprise side character. Definitely not the best, but an honorable mention worthy performance by Happy Hogan, and just his back and forth with Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah,
the whole thing about the chauffeur and everything like that. It's like it's pretty good, and how he like takes it all in stride.
Very good call.
He doesn't really get offended by it, but you can tell he's like a little slighted, but he just keeps pushing through it. I thought that was good stuff, and then. If you watch any of the YouTube breakdowns, like all the Easter eggs that are behind him on his desk there, like the helmet, Tony Stark's original arc reactor. They have like a Forbes magazine cover of Pepper Potts in there. That was from like one of the Iron Men. So cool stuff there. But aging the best, a couple of things I agree with you on. The jokes, like you said, if for no other reason of Ryan Reynolds, like machine gun style of quippy humor, like you can't catch all the jokes. So on rewatch, just like you did through the first one and the second one, like you're picking up new things to laugh at because like maybe you didn't hear it, maybe you didn't catch it at that time, maybe you were laughing at something else. So I think that's good. Hugh Jackman as Wolverine kind of goes without saying. He's just awesome. I think he's gonna, until he's 90, he's gonna be a great Wolverine.
Yeah.
But how about this one? Feeling like the target audience again from a Marvel movie. Like this was like specifically deep cuts for like you and me.
Oh, okay.
Like our demographic. You know what I mean? Like this movie wasn't for kids. Like obviously it's an R-rated movie, but it's not even for like 18-year-olds. Because have they seen Elektra? Have they seen Blade, the Daredevil, the first Fantastic Four movies? This is for like people our age, and it's kind of like an ode to that in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that I didn't think about it like that. Like, yeah, this definitely like there's a lot of this kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, where they do have a lot of good stuff for like younger audience or people who maybe aren't as like deep into the world and stuff as you and I are. But they also have stuff that they have for comic book readers, people who are loyal to the movies, like all of it. They did a really good job of spanning that. But you're right. Like there is a lot of stuff for like just having Blade in the mix, like Wesley Snipes as Blade, excuse me.
Yeah. And like you were saying with Lauren, when you're at the movie, like, I'm sure she watches all the Marvel movies and is a fan, but like, she's like, what's going on with Gambit?
Yeah.
Like, am I supposed to get like all these inside jokes about, a failed production of a movie that never came out? Like that's for us.
Yep. Yeah, no, that was I mean, and this is the kind of thing where it's like when Marvel's at its best, they really have like a lot. They have like a sprinkling of things for everybody. Like obviously, Deadpool can go so fucking far because he's so fourth wall and all that kind of shit. But it was really cool.
And then the other big one was the Fox Heroes. Like you mentioned, just getting all the significant cameos, but the tribute during the end credits. This also felt like a love letter to those movies, in a send-off sort of way.
Yes, and on that note too, I was reminded in the end credit scene that something I had forgotten, but like we talk about people who've taken on multiple superhero roles, right? And obviously, I think Chris Evans may lead the league in that because he was also in The Losers, which is a Vertigo.
Oh, right. Kick-Ass, right?
He's in Kick-Ass. He's in
Fantastic Four.
No, wait. Scott Pilgrim.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Chris Evans was in Kick-Ass. Why can't I remember his role in Kick-Ass?
Maybe not. Maybe it was
Yeah,
Scott
yeah,
Pilgrim that I was
that
thinking
may
of,
be where it was. But like so he leads the league in that, and obviously, but with Jon Favreau, we think of he's he's Happy Hogan, like that's just it. Period. He was also Foggy Nelson in Ben Affleck's Daredevil. Quickly reminded of that in here,
right.
and I don't think they had it, but I want to go back and rewatch for that too now. Like, did Deadpool make any Happy Hogan jokes in that conversation?
Yeah,
If
okay.
not, missed opportunity.
Was Snowpiercer? It's a little off topic. Was Snowpiercer a graphic novel, comic book? 'Cause
No,
that's another Chris Evans joint there. Really good movie though, nonetheless.
I don't think it is. No, I think there's like something called Snow that is like a Dark Horse one. No, but
Okay.
yeah.
Well, nevertheless, though, I thought that was nice. I thought it was a really nice touch at the end, especially where there was no mid-credit scene. So you got to stick through the end to get the end credit scene, which was worth it, like we mentioned. But I wish that just came up at the mid-credits. I wish that didn't come all the way at the end.
You're right. It is. It's a French graphic novel.
There we go. Look at me, the comic book man here, huh?
Wow, look at that.
But yeah, so I thought that was a nice ode to it, which is clearly, the end of the Fox universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It was awesome.
And then also the jabs at Marvel. We talked about the inside jokes about like Channing Tatum and Snipes and Gardner and all that stuff. Those jokes in there, but the jokes at Marvel I thought were really good. Again, specifically with the multiverse stuff, or like you're kind of coming in at a low point, that sort of thing. Like the self-referential humor, is good to see here.
Did you have a packed audience at your theater?
No, I saw this on Sunday morning at 10:30.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
I saw prime time on Saturday, and it was packed. And there were like the reactions to that when they were making those jokes. Like people were like,
"Oh, okay."
Shit. Yeah, it was. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like this movie got so many reactions to so much different shit that happened. It was, yeah. Anyways, moving on.
No, I'm with you. And then also just the multiverse Wolverine montage. That was good stuff. Again, something I could go out and see on YouTube and just enjoy it before the movie comes out, like that sort of thing. What do you think will age the worst from this movie?
So the two things that I have, I mean, one we've already kind of talked about is Nova's motivation. Just like her character can don't get me wrong, like she has like end of the world type stuff going on and wants to create chaos and has her issues with her brother and all that kind of shit. Don't get for sure. But I don't know. I just felt like you could have done better with her from that standpoint. I thought like from a dialogue standpoint, from an acting standpoint, like who was the actor?
How they showed her powers. Like I thought that was super cool. That she actually had she's like, I got to get my hands dirty, unlike my brother, and she's got to stick her hands through the face. Like I thought that was really cool.
Emma Corrin did a great job, and we talked about it before. She's the best Deadpool villain that we've gotten yet. However, from a plotting standpoint and how they motivated the character, probably the worst on that front.
Yes. Yeah. I'm getting, it feels lazy because it's just like, here's another Marvel hero or villain who wants to destroy the world, the multiverse, the universe, whatever it is. And it's like, all right, that doesn't really work for me all that much. So yeah, I'm with you. I agree with it. Her motivations and the writing behind her, I didn't think it was that great. But I liked her, the character. I like her power set and how they showed that. So I thought that was cool.
This is proof like that, like Deadpool doesn't need that stuff always. Like it doesn't mean we don't want it, but he just they continue to be like, it's not a priority. Because we're saying this is the weakest, but like nobody gives a fuck about Francis, and people would make fun of Fire Fist all the time. So it's like nobody gives a shit about the villains. Like so still doesn't age well. And then for me, another thing that I was thinking about afterwards was like Elektra, Gambit, Blade. They're just like left floating in the wind.
So here's my question with this. So he goes back and asks the TVA, Ryan Reynolds was like, hey, can you bring back X-23, right? So she comes back into the mix. But that makes me wonder if he brings back the whole gang or whether they were killed by Alliance. Of course, we don't see it on screen. That's kind of the assumption. But I wonder if they come back in some form for Secret Wars.
I wouldn't hate it if they did.
Not that they need a huge role. I imagine there's going to be cameos galore in that, but maybe they pop up there in a final fight or something like that.
I just would have liked it if if we at least knew where they were. You know what I mean? I don't need to. They don't need to be in that same universe. I don't know, I guess, but then you run into the whole question of like, they're in the same universe. Like, why aren't they pulling them in? Like, so I don't
Right.
know,
Yeah.
but it's just very much like left out to just, hang there, and we're not going to address it. I know there's a lot more priorities, but it just felt like, it could have been addressed.
Could you explain this plot to someone who hasn't seen this movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it was a good plot?
I don't think it, like, I mean, I think the whole anchor being like the way that was explained at the beginning, sure. Like it's
Yeah, but is it like what's the difference between a nexus being, an
Nexus.
anchor being,
Mm.
and I feel like there was another being that they've like described here that all kind of sounds synonymous to me.
That is fair, but wasn't it a Nexus moment? Isn't that what it is?
Is
Not a
it? Yeah, it could be, but I could have sworn in like Deadpool or not Deadpool, Loki or Multiverse of Madness or something. They talked about like a nexus being and that what's her name? Scarlet Witch was that.
Oh, that actually rings a bell. That does ring a bell. Yeah, maybe you're right. I don't know. I mean, obviously, there's so much kind of shit to keep track of. I mean, okay. So from like an explanation standpoint, though, I think it's just simple. It's like Deadpool is his universe is dying because his Wolverine died, and
Mhm.
then he gets brought in to go and move on from his universe, and he says, "Fuck that! I'm going to save my universe," and he wants to bring in another Wolverine. And then along the way, they run into a villain of Charles Xavier's sister who wants to just destroy everything. I mean, that's pretty
Okay.
simple.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I just didn't really like. I guess the plot doesn't really matter.
No,
And that's
I
not a good thing,
I agree.
per se, but it also doesn't really matter. So, because this is where it reminds me of the Flash, where it's like you have these great fight scenes or these great scenes that you want to get to, but you have to get to those points somehow. And it feels like you're clumsily kind of dragging your feet to get to those points throughout this movie.
I don't think that is the worst comp in the world. As much as
This is a better version. It's more well done, but
you say that you say that, yet your grading does
it's the same.
it's the same. Which
Yeah.
I cannot believe that. That is, but let me ask you this, because you talk about I know think like this more so than I do. Are you looking at are you grading on a different scale because it's Marvel versus DC?
Yeah, of course. I
Okay.
think and especially coming with the expectations, which is a huge thing, where there were literally none coming into the Flash because we knew how much it had bombed going into it. So I think anything beyond that was a surprise, and was like, oh, this is good here. So again, having high expectations, though, I think they kind of met them, but not for the reasons of a story.
Okay.
And I think another reason how it also kind of reminds me of the Flash, again, not to the same degree, but you have this like quippy ADHD character in a red suit in the Flash, who you have multiple of, which kind of adds to the annoyance, that he can be. And it's kind of the same way with Ryan Reynolds, where you have all of these different versions of Ryan Reynolds who are kind of like heightened versions of himself, which Deadpool is just kind of a heightened version of Ryan Reynolds anyway. It just feels like he's just playing himself, but in like a punched up way. That can kind of wear thin on people, I think.
It sure. I mean, look no further than the second the character with second billing in this movie. He can't stand it for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
But on the note of the other Deadpools too, obviously we have Nice Pool, but we haven't really talked about those other variants. Did you figure out who Lady Pool was before the credits?
I think I had heard that it was Blake Lively who was playing it in advance. Yeah.
Okay, so I wasn't sure, but Lauren knew right away that it was her.
Off from the voice, yeah.
Yeah, from the voice. And then I think specifically there might have been something that she said that made her realize it. So I wasn't sure. I mean, when we knew it wasn't Taylor Swift, I was like, okay, it's probably Blake Lively. But she's the one that
no Dazzler.
Yes, no Dazzler. Well, I think we're gonna get Dazzler has her own title right now, coming out of the X-Men from the Ashes. So they have plans for her in some capacity.
Okay.
But then the other thing was, who the fuck was it? Did you catch who the cowboy Deadpool was?
Oh, I saw someone mention this somewhere.
You didn't catch it from
who
his
was it,
voice,
though?
though?
No.
Oh, it was McConaughey.
But McConaughey, yeah, that's it.
Yes.
That's right.
As soon
Again,
as-
another reason why I want to go back and rewatch this, kind of pick up on some of that stuff. Apparently, like there was one Deadpool that had like the Wrexham
Yeah.
colors on his chest, of the soccer team that him and Rob McElhaney owned. So there was like a couple of things like that in there.
Yeah, they listed a few of the Deadpools. I haven't but I was like on the lookout to confirm that it was McConaughey, and so I saw his, but I didn't get to see the other one. So I'm I've never been like looking forward to looking at credits.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that, but yeah.
I'll tell you who I didn't enjoy was Mr. Paradox, and he was like. Again, another reason why this movie lose points for me. I thought he was a complete waste. I think he could have just had Cassandra Nova in there, and then like somehow Deadpool works his way of like breaking out of the TVA or something. I don't think you needed a rogue TVA agent in there to kind of be like the guy who wants to take everything over. But he also does a whole lot of explaining, like so much explaining, so much so that Deadpool comments on it, which is a weird thing because then it's the writers realizing that there's a lot of exposition, but not going back and doing anything about it. And instead just like surmising it with like a dumb acknowledgement joke from Deadpool.
But that's Deadpool. But seriously, did you laugh when he said, "Holy MacGuffin"?
Yeah, exactly. Like some of that stuff, like it's great. It's funny, but it's also like, all right, well, do something about it then. You know what I mean?
When I heard that line, I thought of you. I was like, Wesley's gonna like that one.
Yeah. There's like a lot of talky. Like they talk about Wolverine going back and what happened to him, right? It's like, all right, go out and show it then. Like you reference it like 3 or 4 times, and that tells me that like either they didn't care to do it or they didn't have the creative wherewithal to like pull it off.
Oh, you know what? On that note, I really thought like there was. I mean, obviously. I feel like anytime we see something that's like, oh, in the comics they did this, so maybe this is what they're gonna do. Anytime we all, as like a collective like audience of Marvel, notice that and jump on it and like this could be it, I'm always inclined to think, yeah, this is probably not gonna work that way. Like it's just because if we're all thinking that it's too fucking obvious, they're not gonna do it.
Yeah.
But when the whole Old Man Logan theory came out, like from the comic, like some of what happened there with this Logan, when that I will admit I got suckered into thinking that, like when someone said, "Oh, are they gonna do some more Old Man Logan stuff?" and then it was like, "Oh, are they gonna have him like this Logan killed all of the X-Men from his universe because of material?" Like I thought that was gonna happen. Like once they said that, I was like, I know what you're thinking, and they could fucking do it, and it makes sense. I was when they didn't, I was like, man, like I get why they wouldn't do it, but I was like, it would have been really fucking crazy if they're like, yeah, I killed all my friends.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen that. And you could have even done it with the Cassandra Nova when she's like going through his mind and everything, and somehow shown that, but like not, that didn't get it.
No,
but instead you get like Manchester by the Sea Wolverine. Like he's just drunk and then it's like too drunk to do anything to save his family. And it's like kind of his fault. It's like, oh, all right. This is a real nitpick, but at the final scene, one of the final scenes, Wolverine is appealing to Cassandra Nova and he's saying how great of Charles Xavier was and that he loved everyone and that he would have loved you. If he knew you were alive, he would have tried to save you. But correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't her whole backstory that Charles Xavier knew how evil she was, so he killed her in the womb?
No, they had like their issues in the womb, and then that's why he did that. So
But he kills her.
so kind of, yeah. So
Yeah.
kind of, yeah. Yeah. So you're not far off. Sorry, yes. Yeah. And then she kind of comes up out of nowhere, and then they have their issues. Yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying. Like that's fair, but I can also see why
nitpicks.
I can, that. Because I can explain. I look at that and it's like, well, Wolverine doesn't know all that shit. Like he could.
Yeah, but all she had to be like, no, he killed me in the womb. He knows who I am.
That actually would have been funny. That would have been funny if she said that. Like he fucking tried to kill me too. It's like, oh well, shit, I don't know.
Okay, and then they just go back to a fight. It's like,
oh fuck.
Yeah. So okay, that's it from what age the worst? I think.
Okay.
Oh, you know, the one thing I wanted to add to what aged the worst. So you mentioned the jokes is one thing that will age the best, but one thing that could make this age the worst in that sense is how bottle capped the jokes are. Like they're like of a certain time frame. So if you go back and watch Deadpool 1 or Deadpool 2, there's going to be references to like in the moment that like you may not remember. It's kind of like the meme, you know, it's like meme in live action. So I wonder like how much of those jokes don't land as well because they're not as timely.
I think that there's okay. That's a fair point, but I also look at that. It's like people love nostalgia, so it's going to take them back to those moments too.
It can, but it also could just be like too niche.
Uh,
I don't know. I'm just bringing it up.
Fair point. It's fair. It's a fair question to ask. There's no doubt about that.
Okay, not to be confused with the best surprise performance by a side character. Who had the best performance by a side character?
It is still the same answer for me here. Johnny Storm. I just so fucking good. Like we've talked about this before. Chris Evans as Human Torch was not one of the problems that we had with the Fantastic Four movies. So, but he did a great job stepping back into the role, and just again the end credit scene was just like didn't need it, but I'm so glad I had it.
It kind of seals it, right? For me, it's Gambit. I love Johnny Storm. Can't be mad at that. I thought Gambit was great, but I think maybe to switch things up from the other category. I love Nice Pool. I thought Nice Pool was very funny. His fourth wall break with the proposal, I thought was really good.
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, I can do it too. The proposal.
Yeah, and everything.
Is that what you think I do?
He's like, oh no, I don't fight. I have low bone density. I thought that was really good. And then they're like, why aren't you? He's like, regenerate. And I was like, that's really funny. Peter was great.
Yeah, Peter stepped up for sure, and he got a lady friend at the end of it all too.
Yeah, right. And like he's got his gut sticking out of it, and you can see like where the belt is. He's got like a fupa thing underneath, which is really, really funny, like a little muffin top there, which I thought was great. And then like Woman's like, "You were wearing the shit out of that suit right now."
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, all right."
That's good stuff. So I thought that was, although I was a little confused when how he gets all of the Deadpools just to like sing the praises of Peter. So when they get away at the end, like Peter comes in, he's like, "No, this Deadpool's with me," and then they all just kind of like
they all love Peter.
Yeah, but it's I guess so that just seems like I don't know.
Oh, sure, but yeah, this is more,
a little ridiculous, but yeah.
Oh, of course it is. It absolutely is ridiculous.
And then Blade, Dogpool too. You know, shout out Dogpool, good stuff.
Dogpool.
Who lost the movie?
Cassandra Nova, because it's like she's like. Obviously, like in the literal sense, but just a character who I am worried that they're not going to find a way to utilize her again. Like they just, and she could be such a great chess player, for the X-Men in live action. Maybe we see her more in the animated stuff moving forward, and that'd be great if that was the case. But I just feel like from a live action standpoint, it's great that we saw her. She was a cool character, but she could have, from a her motivation standpoint, as we've talked about a ton, could have been done a lot better.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. For me, it's Mr. Paradox. I thought he was a complete waste. Is a real nothing character. But I think the real winner is people who insist Marvel is back after seeing this. So this has been a reoccurring question that we have kind of discussed almost at every other point, right? Multiverse of Madness, Wakanda Forever, Ant-Man Quantumania, No Way Home, all these things. Is Marvel back? I don't think this means Marvel's back, because we were talking about, like, I don't know if this was earlier in the show or before we hit record, but the Ringer had that article. It's like Marvel is doing Days of Future Past. We talked about that earlier in the episode, right? And they're bringing back Hugh Jackman for their lead character in the X-Men, Wolverine, while also telling us that they're going to be recasting everyone, and it's kind of like this Robert Downey Jr. role, or maybe not even having Wolverine in there. So it's like, yeah, get ready for the X-Men, but we're going to bring back this character that you love for it as well. So there's that. And then there's also like where this movie is just doesn't really advance the plot anymore for the MCU. It's still kind of in a bottle.
It definitely is. It does not like advance the larger MCU issue. Like it doesn't. There's still like a lot of like, I think we had talked about this, about like in the so much buildup that we had, where it was like this will be, the introduction of the X-Men into the MCU, but at the same time, it's like a soft launch,
Yeah.
and I think that's what I expected to be. And
But no one, like, you don't need to soft launch the X-Men. X-Men is their most popular franchise.
you do, from the sense of like everything, all the other machinations that you have. Like you don't need to soft launch it from like people getting attached to it, but from like caring about the larger MCU, like on the whole, you do.
Yeah, I guess so. But like again, like these characters aren't going to be involved in whatever iteration of the Marvel X-Men that we see from here.
I will also say too, another thing like which kind of addresses the plot and moving Marvel forward on the whole. I saw mentions, like people talking, like as people have been talking about like the stuff with Doom and how like Marvel is pivoting, and then like what's like in Kang, and that was originally the plan and whatnot.
Mhm.
I did see somewhere, I don't know like how much truth there is to it, but that like Paradox was originally going to be recruiting people to fight like the Kang variants in some capacity.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
there's also might be a level of pivoting that needed to be done in
And I
all
think
of this.
I think this was probably during the writers' strike at some point,
There was a
or
level of
the
that, yep.
actors' strike or something too, right? So it's that's good to kind of take that into account too.
Yeah,
That
so
makes sense.
there's all those things that like maybe could have played a role here, but yeah.
But yeah, but my greater point is like, all right, you can have a hitter go 1 for 4 to bust out of a slump with a home run. But that doesn't really matter if you go 0 for your next 24.
This is true.
So it's like we
That
can't
is
call it a hitting streak. We can't say that they're back until like we get something going. You need 3 games to get a hitting streak. You know what I mean?
But I'm also on the camp of I've never felt like Marvel was gone. So like this is where I can't add as much to
Yeah,
it.
but I mean, but still, you still have to agree that there's a drop off between
I think the
the
problem
Infinity Saga and post that. Like,
I
there's a clear delineation.
there's absolutely a clear delineation, but that again, what I've said the whole time is like you're trying to start a whole new saga off. You're not gonna If you're gonna try and establish all these new characters and all that kind of shit, you're not gonna just be like go 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 and everything's gonna continue on this upward trend. So
Yeah.
that was a choice, and because of the amazing storytelling that they did before across all these movies and built it up to all this shit that they did, they set themselves up for like you can't do this again because most people haven't responded well to it.
Yeah, well, this is the bar that they set, So
Yeah,
it's like
100%.
this is the level of expectation that they built up from themselves. So it's like I don't think it's lived up to it, but I don't think they're back yet. I still think there's a clear drop off, and maybe they never get back to that point, but maybe that's okay.
It's gonna be. I mean, I don't. I mean, that was touching the sun, man. It's changed the landscape of cinema too. It's not just like that was
For better or for worse, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was massive. So I think there's been a level of correction across the medium, but it was just it had a huge impact. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed there. And also, I think like I kind of hate this term, but for lack of a better one, the normies who were so heavily invested, like leading up to Infinity War Endgame. I don't think those people are there to help kind of champion Marvel like they were and kind of push them up to that next stratosphere that was happening like in the lead up to Infinity War and Endgame. Like they had now like we talked about this in some degrees, like the hit piece articles or the negative articles that are coming out that wasn't there before from like traditional movie critics or movie outlets. You had like the fanboys and the fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe who were like championing this for so long, and that's the core group who's still there. But then like let's say like the hoity-toity film critics who were like, oh, I'm gonna get in on this while we're at like the peak pretty much. They're not there anymore to kind of help like lift that up
with the negative commentary or the positive commentary.
Well, just with anything, like
Okay.
negative or positive, like they're not there in support. So I guess more of the positive.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Because I feel like that. Like, yeah. Okay. That's yeah. I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, I think the criticism is still there, but maybe the positive. It's definitely changed. Like, it's undeniable that it's changed. You're right.
Who won the movie?
I think Ryan Reynolds and or Hugh Jackman. I mean, I can't believe how ripped he was I was stunned by that. I don't know how much
Good
that's
for him.
CGI, but holy shit.
Oh yeah, well yeah. Oh, we didn't talk about this. What'd you think of the cowl?
Oh yeah. That was cool. It was cool. And dude, the joke about fucking Batman's cowl was
Yeah,
fucking great. Oh my god, that was awesome. But yeah, I liked it. I've always thought like, how are you gonna do that? And obviously we had seen it, and maybe we hadn't seen it. We'd only seen it in like action figures and stuff. But I thought they pulled it off well.
I thought it was pretty good. There was one scene when they were fighting all the Deadpools, and they like jump out of the back of the bus, and it's like Deadpool's on the right and Wolverine's on the left, and Wolverine's got the his mask on, and he's like kind of down in his like crouching, like ready to attack position, and he looks like a video game player who's just like stalled out. Like you could tell that it was very clear, CGI work, and it's like you're at the waiting screen and you're like trying to select a player and they're just kind of like scrolling around. Like that's kind of him. He was just kind of like this just for a couple seconds, and it was like not a big deal, but I was like, oh, that's kind of funny.
Yeah,
but
that is funny.
that made me think of it. The cowl made me think of it when you said like how ripped he was, because in that end scene, his shirt busts off and he's just got the cowl on.
Yeah.
And it's like you can see like all 8 abs,
It was crazy.
maybe 10. I don't know.
It was mind blowing. So like you can like, I think the argument for me is between the two of them, because like Ryan Reynolds like delivered, he's in the MCU and he got to still like do all the shit that he wanted to do, and it's like,
and his fingerprints are all producing, writing, right? Yeah, all that stuff. I think they pull in Sean Levy here because he probably is like a bigger name than Sean Levy, and Sean's just along for the ride, so he can still kind of like get in his ear and like kind of talk to him a little bit, and get his ideas through that director. Hugh Jackman, it's for me though. I think Hugh Jackman is amazing.
That's a fair point.
He's got like 2 monologues that really hit, like one when he's yelling at Deadpool in the car when he realizes that it's a educated wish, which is a really funny phrase to me. That one, and then when he's talking to Laura. When he's like explaining what he did again, and it's like that emotion there. So he's kind of like the emotional beat to it, where like Ryan Reynolds, although great, is just pretty one note.
Yeah, I got like, that's a thing that we talk about, how they did a really good job of differentiating like Logan and the end, like that character at the end versus this one. Jackman did that work too. Like it was that the stuff that happened at the beginning, what like you needed that was the primary work, but he did a good job of like, yeah, this is Wolverine, but this does not feel exactly like the guy that we've always dealt with over the years. So that's a good point. On a quick note backwards, on who lost the movie, another one too that like just we're not even thinking about him, but TJ Miller, like Weasel, not in it at all. Obviously, they've had their issues over the years. It seems like they're fine now, but like Weasel, like you're the only one of the Deadpool buddies that's out.
Well, yeah, and one of the things that he kind of goes back to, he's like, everyone who I love is in this photo. And it's like, that could be kind of taking like a meta joke there too. I saw some clip of a podcast that TJ Miller was on where they were talking about the spat between him and Ryan Reynolds and what happened there. And it was on the set of Deadpool 2, they were doing some like extra takes. Like they had already gotten the take in. They're like, all right, let's do kind of some like ad-libbed improv type of stuff. And apparently Ryan Reynolds goes very hard at TJ Miller. Right. And in a sense that's like kind of like Deadpool, where it's like, is it meta? Is this about like the character Weasel, or is he really talking about TJ Miller? And he's like, it really irked me. And I remember he's like, this is him who said, TJ Miller saying this. He's like, I remember talking to people on set afterwards, like, was that just me or was that really like fucked up? And they're like, no, that was really uncomfortable. So for whatever reason, they don't get along. And like Ryan Reynolds kind of made that known, to everyone there. So I don't know who's at fault. I'm sure we're probably missing the other side of the story on that.
Yeah.
But that's interesting nonetheless.
Because then TJ Miller went and said something again, but then it turned out that like Ryan Reynolds reached out to him after that one, and it seemed like they buried the hatchet. But I'm kind of inclined to just, very much assume we're not getting the full story and whatever TJ Miller did, because he's gregarious.
He's kind of out there.
Yeah. There's a reason he left Silicon Valley. I don't think it was just him. right?
Yeah, no, I think he actually might be like bipolar or like
Oh.
have something like that, like diagnosed like that.
Gotcha.
I know
Wow,
he
really?
called in a bomb threat like on a train or something like that, or there was like
What the fuck?
some story that was like kind of like that. He got into some trouble for that, but
Okay,
I think he's got a chemical imbalance in his brain or something.
got it. Okay,
But
there
yeah,
you
I
go.
mean, nevertheless, and you know, I can also like picture a world where Ryan Reynolds like is a douchebag. You
Possibly, yeah,
know,
yeah.
like could be very like tough to work with.
Hmm.
So I can imagine that they're both, you know, on the pie chart, it's probably more 60-40 than like 90-10,
Hmm.
one
Definitely.
one way or the other, you know.
I'm more inclined to think that. Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. Unless anything else, did we miss?
You didn't mention Fox superhero movies as well.
Oh, I did. Yes, I meant to. Yeah, Fox superhero movies again. Not that they won. This is an honorable mention. But just again as a love letter to those Fox movies. Of One Final Goodbye, mostly highlighted by the cameos, obviously, but the end credits is what really did it for me. I thought if I wish movies would go back to that more, just show fun end credit blooper scenes as the credits were rolling there. I think that's a great way to leave on a movie. The Hangover understood that to a degree. It was just photos, but still,
That that was they definitely went
it was great stuff.
in a direction similar to that. But yeah, I really did enjoy that. It was nice.
Okay, so that's it. Deadpool and Wolverine. Nick gave it a 92. I gave it an 85. That's a CMM aggregate score of 88 and a half. Good for number 17, right or wrong, in our CMM MCU rankings. And next week, Nick, we got fun stuff planned, right? We got fun stuff for our main episode here.
We're doing the Twisters original versus sequel.
Twister versus Twisters.
Yes.
Original versus sequel. It should be a lot of fun. That's been another movie that's done really well at the box office. So for all of our conversations that the box office has been dead, maybe we got a pulse here.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it sure seems like Glenn Powell was part of that solution too.
Oh yeah, the Powell songs here. But now it's time to make sure you get your tickets out because the train is leaving the station, ladies and gentlemen.
Choo-choo, bitches.
Now we got to switch some gears. We got a major show announcement, and we are going to the Ringer podcast leagues, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be working. It's been a lifelong dream of mine to work with the Midnight Boys, the Pew Pews, and the folks over at the Big Picture. You know, Chris Ryan and Bill Simmons and all those guys there. So we're going to be doing deep dives over on the Ringer Podcast Network. No, none of that is true.
I don't think that's what it is.
In fact, just the opposite here. This will be this podcast will be coming to an end very shortly, probably at the end of the month in August here. You know, this is something that we've been doing the podcast for 5 years now.
Crazy.
Love doing the podcast. I love chopping it up with Nick, you know, original versus sequel debates, sending subtle jabs, you know, as I can, whenever we can pepper them in there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just, you know, with life as I get, you know, have a kid, you know, responsibilities change, schedules change. Nick's doing awesome stuff with Dr. Joe Gilmore over at the TLDR podcast. So now he has a little bit more time to devote to that. Of course, with his lovely wife and the future family they may or may not have down the road there, you know, and anything with his job. So as you know, we started this, pre-pandemic.
We started this pre either of us being married. Like it was
right.
It's a lot has, and we're gonna like our final episode will be a send off, where we do a lot of like, you know, looking back and everything. But it's pretty crazy, like what's changed for you and I over the years, in so many different ways.
On this podcast, we're growers.
Yeah, there's like, I mean, we we were like, you know, you were still working. We were both still at the Standard Times. You were working the news desk primarily at that time, right? You were, like, that was your job.
Yeah, at that point, I might have been. Yeah, that's close to tell. It's either right at the Standard Times or when I went over to the Enterprise.
Yeah, so it was right around that time, and and then like and now look where you and I are like so you can talk about like from a family standpoint, but then from like a professional standpoint, a lot's changed too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think
Yeah.
this has been an awesome ride. Like I said, 5 years. We're close to like 300 episodes.
Yeah.
Maybe with a few bonus interviews and stuff like that. We're like right at the precipice of 300. I think 280 as a crow flies.
Yep.
Probably get to 285 or 284 or
I
so.
think it's 284 we did the math.
Before we get to the end there, but we'll have a big spectacular extravaganza bonanza, kind of like what we did for our 100th episode.
Yep.
So we'll get some reoccurring guests, maybe some surprise cameos in there, but till then we're gonna have some fun stuff to deal with. Like we said, we did The Boys last week, we did Deadpool and Wolverine this week. Next week we're doing Twister's original versus sequel, and we got a couple other fun things to kind of fill out the gap to that final episode here. But Nick, it's been a blast.
It has. It's not over yet. I don't want to start talking like that just yet because we're not done yet. But it has. You're absolutely right.
Don't cry for what has happened. Smile for what will come.
Yeah, I'm very much having to contain myself from like talking about all the different stuff that's happened. Like we're gonna have that whole moment. Like we wanted to make sure we let you all know before that episode. So you can
what could be unburdened by what's been done.
What could be unburned? Okay, now you're using big.
I think that's Kamala Harris's famous catchphrase, which I'm not really sure. I think I know what it means. I probably screwed it up, but it just sounds like word salad to me.
It made sense to me, but yeah. So we have it looks like 4 more episodes, so 4 weeks in August. So August 26th. Make sure you circle that on your calendar.
The dog days of summer, my friend. This is what happens in the dog days of summer. You get grind up and chewed to bits here.
Start thinking crazy ideas.
Yeah, exactly. But nevertheless, for the next 4 weeks, we will be back every Monday, same bat time, same bat place. Be there or be square.